Hello everybody and welcome to my video. I'm going to be guiding you along your journey to learning Annie in the mid lane. Right now Annie is extremely powerful with the changes in patch 6.9. They gave her a lot more damage in my opinion and made her a lot stronger overall with the item changes. Annie is a short-range mage who excels at bursting down her enemies while applying a lot of pressure with her AoE stun. She's a lot of fun to play and has a lot of potential, so let's just jump right into it. Let's start with her abilities. Let's talk about Annie's passive first. After casting 4 abilities, Annie's next damaging ability stuns enemies it damages for 1.25 seconds to 1.5 to 1.75 seconds based off of Annie's level. This is a key ingredient in all of Annie's combos and her bursting late game, holding her enemies still. It's important that you manage your stun on your passive so that way you can engage properly. Annie's Q is Disintegrate. By activating it, Annie hurls a fireball at a targeted enemy dealing magic damage. If Disintegrate kills a target, it refunds its total mana cost and it refunds its cooldown by half immediately. This is a very important tool in Annie's kit. She can use it to farm quite effectively since it refunds all the mana and the cooldown by half. And it's also a good tool to harass with, especially if you outrange your opponent. You're going to want to take this at level 1 and max it first. It's a very good tool. Annie's W is Incinerate. By activating, Annie releases a cone of fire in the target direction, dealing magic damage to all enemies in the area. You're going to want to take this level 2 and max it second. It's a really strong ability. You're going to be using it a lot for harassing and 1v1ing opponents. You also can use it quite effectively with your passive, since it will give you an AoE stun with every opponent you hit with it. Annie's E is Molten Shield. Upon activating, Annie wraps herself in a fiery aura, and for the next 3 seconds, Annie takes reduced percent damage. At level 1, it's 16%, and at level 5, it's 40%. I suggest taking this ability at level 3 and maxing it last. If you are in a lane where you outrange your opponent and they can't really inflict a lot of damage on you, I suggest taking this ability at level 7 and maxing it last. You're only going to activate this ability if you're going up against someone like Zed or a mage that has more range than you. Whenever they're landing a spell on you, you're just going to click it to take reduced damage. Annie's R is amazing. You guys all know what it is. It's Tibbers. Upon activating, Tibbers will appear and do massive damage to everybody around the area in which Annie chooses. But there's also a second part to Tibbers. You can move Tibbers around and tell him to attack things by just simply clicking R and pointing your cursor where you'd like. Tibbers will attack that target. He'll auto-attack it. And Tibbers also has a burn aura around him like a Sunfire Cape, which deals magic damage every single second to every enemy nearby him, which does a lot of damage. Also, upon summoning Tibbers, he has Rage, which will momentarily give him bonus movement speed and attack speed to maul enemies. If you use your passive again, so if you stun an enemy after Tibbers has already been cast, he'll also receive Rage, so he'll get that bonus movement speed and attack speed as well. Also, if you die while Tibbers is still alive, Tibbers will attack the target that killed you, and he'll also gain bonus movement speed and attack speed once you die. In case you got lost or confused on the level ordering, this is the one you're going to want to take 80% of the time, and this is the one you're going to want to take the other 20% when you're playing really aggressive and they can't really fight back. For your Masteries, this is the page I suggest you run. It's going to give you overall the most damage, most burst potential, and most sustain in lane possible. You're probably going to want to take this 90% of the time. For your other page you're going to want to take 10% of the time is this one. It's going to give you overall more magic penetration, and you're really only going to want to take this one if you're going up against a team that's going to build a lot of magic resist due to your team having a lot of ability power. For your runes against an AD mid laner, someone like Zed or Talon, this is what I'd suggest you run. Flat magic pen reds, scaling AP per level blues, flat AP quints, and flat armor seals. If you are going up against an enemy AP mid laner, I suggest you take this page. It's very similar to the last one, just a little bit different. You're going to want to take flat magic pen red, flat AP quint, scaling health per level yellows, and scaling ability power per level. For your summer spells, 90% of the time, I suggest you take Ignite and Flash. It's going to give you overall the damage you're going to need in lane to get a kill at level 6. Also, it's going to give you damage that you need so that way you won't get bullied too much. If they want to all in you, especially on your turret, they're going to get ignited and they're going to die. The only time I would suggest you take Teleport on Annie is if you're playing Annie top, or if you're in a weird matchup mid lane where they have way more range than you and they're really good at it. So if they're like a Lux main or something, then yeah, you're probably going to want to take Teleport on Annie because things are going to get really weird. Just avoid picking Annie into situations where your enemy laner outranges you. Like in this game, Zyra outranges me, but she's a skill shot based mage and I can usually dodge them because they're very slow skill shots. Let's talk about Annie's items. Annie's items are pretty straightforward. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to take Doran's Ring, 2 health potions, along with the warding totem. Then in the mid game, when you start buy some items, you have a choice between going for the Rod of Aegis, getting the Catalyst of the Eons, or going for the Negatron Cloak. I suggest going for the Negatron Cloak if you're against an AP matchup, and the Rod of Aegis against an AD matchup. Bear in mind, Rod of Aegis is overall safer choice. You're going to want to get the Abyssal Scepter, though, if you're going to be Big Dick Annie and carry and get lots of kills. But overall, Rod of Aegis is the safer choice. Just get the Abyssal Scepter if you think you can kill your mid laner, and your mid laner that you're playing against is AP as well. As you're building these items, or once you're finished getting these items, getting your Boots of Speed is not a bad idea. If you want to get Boots of Speed before you totally finish the item, make sure you at least get one of the main parts, whether it be the Catalyst of the Aeons, the Blasting Wand, or the Negatron Cloak, or the Fiendish Codex. Then once you do finish your boots, which I would suggest doing after you get one of these items, once you do finish one of those items and you get your boots, I would suggest you getting one of these 3. If you're playing as a carry Annie and you're going to kill your mid laner and then roam around, or push lane and roam around, get boots of mobility, it's not a bad choice. Or if you need overall more damage because your team already has a lot of AP, so you know the enemy team is going to stack magic resist, get sorcerer shoes. And this one I don't personally like, but some Annies seem to really love it. I don't see why, since Annie's initial engage is all just one cycle of her spells and that's it. So I don't really understand the Ionian boots, but some Annies like it. I personally prefer boots of mobility or the Sorc shoes. For the late game optionals, as you see, you've only built 3 items. This is essentially your core right here: boots, Rod of Aegis, and your Abyssal Scepter. For your late game optional, this is what you have to work with. I personally love getting Luden's Echo. It gives you so much damage, a lot of movement speed, and like I said, a lot of damage, especially from its unique passive, which is it's just called Echo. And it deals a base 100 damage plus 10% of your total ability power to up to 4 targets on hit. It's so strong. I love it. I'd recommend getting that usually. Getting Rabadon as well is a great choice on Annie. It's a great 5th item. I'd only suggest getting Morellonomicon if the enemy team has a lot of health regen, like Swain, Mundo, Soraka, Sona. If they have a lot of heals in general, at least 2 or more. And Riley's Crystal Scepter, I would highly suggest, highly suggest is getting as a 5th item if the enemy team has a lot of tanks and bruisers. If they have a lot of tanks and bruisers, when you ult with your Tibbers is going to AoE slow everybody. And also, Tibbers has a burn aura around him that does magic damage every second, like a Sunfire Cape. And Tibbers' auto attacks also do magic damage. So every second, Tibbers is going to be slowing everybody around him for his full existence. So Riley's is a great item if the enemy team has a lot of bruisers and tanks. The reason I say that is it's not very good against squishies. Usually your initial Tibbers WQ burst is enough to get the kill that you don't need this slow. You just need more AP. Void Staff is great if the enemy team has a lot of magic resist. Like I said, if your team is magic damage heavy, you're going to want to get Void Staff. You're probably going to end up getting Void Staff and the Rileys if your team is magic damage heavy. Zhonya's is a great choice only if the enemy team has a Zed or a Talon, something that right when they ult, you know you're going to get fucked and they jump on you, you're going to want to have Zhonya's. And if the enemy team is pretty much all AP, they have 2 or more mages on their team that are high damage, I would suggest getting a Banshee's Veil, especially if they have a pick out like a Blitz Hook or a Lux Snare. Banshee's Veil is a great choice in that situation where they outrange you. And for the final item, I personally haven't tried it, but in theory, it seems like a very good idea. Instead of getting one of these items up here possibly, it's the Hextech Pro Belt. And essentially what it does is it gives you solid health, 300 health, 60 ability power, and 10% cooldown reduction. But more importantly, it's basically a flash. It flashes you forward in that direction, doing a little bit of damage to people. The damage is irrelevant, but what you're looking for is the flash. As it bolts you forward, it's going to make it easy for you to Tibbers, and you'll be able to surprise your enemies. So even when your flash isn't up, if your Hextech Pro Belt is up, you can still do an easy engage with your Tibbers, with your Tibber stun combo. And that's going to wrap it up for items. And these matchups are pretty simple. You typically want to pick her into a lane matchup. Whenever you're going up against a melee person like Zed or Yasuo, Annie tends to excel in these areas because whenever they go onto her with their melee, she'll just stun them, burst them, back up, and then they can't really chase her since Annie can just back up to her turret. If they do chase you, you just keep backing up, and as they turn away, you can just auto attack them. Annie can still perform pretty well against ranged matchups. Just try to avoid picking her into certain matchups where they have a lot more range than you. Things like Xerath can give you a lot of trouble, especially in higher elos and lower elos. Whenever people aren't really good at landing skill shots with their champions, you can still get away with picking Annie. As far as laning Fane goes, you're pretty much just going to chill and farm with your Q. It'll give you all the mana back from using it, and it will refund half of the cooldown instantly. It's an easy tool to last hit with, and it's really safe to do because even if they keep pushing the wave on you and they keep pressuring you, you can still simply just farm with your Q and build up stacks. After using 4 spells, your next spell will stun, and as you can see above my head, I have 3 stacks at the moment. The enemies can see this as well, so keep this in mind. They'll typically notice it, so when you have full stacks, they'll play a lot less aggressive. They'll leave you alone. So if you just want to farm, you might want to leave it at full stacks and practice last hitting with your auto attacks. But if you're missing too much farm doing that, feel free to keep using your Q. As when you're playing Annie, and if you're playing well, you are going to get camped. So it's important that you either play safe enough to not die, or you play well enough to make sure you at least get a kill before you die. Once you're level 6 as Annie, you want to try to hit it before your opponent does, so that way you can all in them as Tibbers. Keep track of your experience bar. You'll find it right by your portrait on the bottom of the screen. It will be a little purple bar. As it reaches towards the top of the bar, you will hit your next level. So as you're noticing, it's getting higher and higher, and it etches to the very top. Just kill a minion, immediately level up your ultimate and all in them. Try to time this so you can get an easy kill. If not, if they're playing really safe, just push the wave out really hard with your W and your Q, and then roam bot and get an easy kill. When it comes to the late game, Annie's very basic. You're basically running around the map with 3 stacks typically, or 4 works as well. So you want to have 3 or 4 stacks on your passive as you're running around the map waiting for team fights. Once the team fight happens, or you want to start it, you're simply going to use your E, then flash Tibbers, or just E Tibbers. That way your Tibbers will have the stun on it. Whenever you use your Tibbers, 99.9% of the time, you want to make sure you have all the stacks on your passive, so that way it will be a stun. That way every one Tibbers hit will stun, and you'll get that extra damage off and the extra time to burst. When you are going to all in an opponent, the best way to do it once you are level 6 is hit them with your Tibbers, then Q and W. It's just very simple, very easy. Ideally, I guess you should W then Q, since your Q will follow and your W is locked on distance. So ult W then Q. If you're fighting an opponent who's very slippery, like an Ezreal or a Vayne, somebody who you're afraid you're going to miss your ultimate on, and granted, you can miss your ultimate. It's not that hard to miss it, especially if they flash. If you're in that situation, and it's especially when it's in a one-on-one, or if it's not a team fight, if it's just one of them and you don't want to miss your ultimate and your stun is up, use your Q first, because your Q can't miss. Just immediately hit them with your Q, then they'll be stunned, and then bitch slap them with your Tibbers and W. It's that easy. If you're afraid of missing your skill shot, which is your W or ult, just use your Q. It's automatic. You can't miss it. It will follow them. Just make sure in the late game you're looking for team fight opportunities where you can just flash in ult with Tibbers, or flash in W if your Tibbers is down. It's very simple, very easy. You guys should be able to get the hang of Annie. I hope this guide has helped you out. I hope it's given you an idea of what to do as Annie. And if you like this kind of guide, let me know. If you want me to edit it a different way or give more feedback on certain things, just let me know, and I'll do my best to work on it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next video.
Yeah.